Welcome to the deep dive. So, if you were to just, stop someone on the street and ask them, hey, who invented the car?
hmm
You'd probably get one, maybe two answers.
Right. It's got to be Karl Benz or Henry Ford. That's what everyone seems to think.
Exactly. But when you really dig into the source material we've got here, the patents, the engineering blueprints, all of it, it becomes so clear that the birth of the car wasn't a single event.
That's absolutely right. And our mission today is to find that real tipping point. I mean, the historical anchor is 1886, for sure.
Right.
But we're looking for that moment. It went from being this fragile, impractical lab experiment into a machine that could actually change the world.
And we have some incredible material for this deep dive. We've
hmm
got detailed technical specs on the very first cars, a really thrilling account of the first ever long-distance drive.
And then there's the story of the American Patent Wars.
And maybe most importantly, a very specific accounting of the complex political and moral legacy of one of the industry's titans, Henry Ford.
So let's start where the timeline does. Germany, 1886. This is where Karl Benz gets the credit for the official, quote, birth certificate of the automobile.
January 29th, right? He gets German patent number 37435.
That's the one for his vehicle propelled by a gas engine.
What's so fascinating in the sources, though, is his whole engineering philosophy. He'd already had success with stationary gas engines, but he consciously rejected the idea of just adapting something that already existed.
He fundamentally got that you couldn't just stick an engine onto a horse-drawn carriage and call it a day. That was, inadequate.
That's just a motorized cart.
Exactly. Benz wanted a fully integrated unit. His vehicle, the patent motor car number 1, had a chassis built specifically for the engine.
Made of, what was it, welded steel tubing.
Bent and welded steel tubing, yeah. So it was designed from the ground up to be a car, which is really why historians tend to give him that title of creating the first true automobile.
Okay, but the first model was a three-wheeler. That seems like an odd choice. Why not four?
It was a very clever solution to a big steering problem. See, traditional carriages use this thing called fifth wheel steering.
Right, where the whole front axle pivots.
Exactly. But Benz knew that wouldn't work with his rear-wheel drive design, where the vehicle is being pushed from behind. The three-wheel setup was just a simpler, more predictable way to get it to steer properly.
That focus on solving the absolute basics is what makes the technical details so great. The engine itself was a single-cylinder, four-stroke, nearly a liter in displacement, but it only produced, what, 0.9 horsepower?
Yeah, less power than a modern lawnmower. It was initially measured at just 2/3 of a horsepower. But for Benz, that was a huge leap forward. And he added some really ingenious quirks, too. For instance, he mounted the flywheel horizontally.
Why horizontal? I mean, this seems like such an arbitrary choice unless there was a specific reason.
Oh, there was a crucial one. He was genuinely worried that the gyroscopic effect of a heavy, vertically spinning flywheel would fight the driver.
It would make it harder to turn.
Exactly. It would want to keep the car stable and going straight, like how a bicycle stays upright. Benz was trying to neutralize that force so he could actually steer the thing.
That is an incredible level of foresight. Now let's talk about the driver experience. The sources say the fuel wasn't standard gasoline, was it?
No, not at all. The vehicle ran on Ligroin. It's a highly volatile petroleum solvent, sort of like modern lighter fluid.
Wow.
And it was fed through a surface carburetor that held a tiny 1.5 liters. The fuel consumption was just horrific. About 10 liters per 100 kilometers.
So this machine was not built for a road trip.
Yeah.
And looking at the description of the transmission, it sounds incredibly difficult to drive.
It was primitive. There was no foot brake, just a manual lever, no multi-speed transmission, and certainly no reverse gear.
So how did you even get it going?
You had to manually move a flat belt between a fixed driving disc and an idle disc. That was your clutch. It was pure mechanical effort just to get it moving forward at one speed.
So Benz has this integrated, patented design. But at the exact same time, you have Gottlieb Daimler taking a completely different approach.
Completely different. Daimler and his partner, Wilhelm Maybach, they were obsessed with one thing: developing a high-speed engine that could power anything. Boats, machines, you name it.
And in November 1886, they show off their vehicle, the Daimler motorized carriage.
And here's the key distinction. Daimler basically just bought a stagecoach and installed his engine onto it. It wasn't an integrated design like Benz's.
And that adaptation is why historians give the first true automobile title to Benz.
Exactly. But Daimler and Maybach's focus on a versatile, powerful engine that proved to be immensely scalable. They went on to form Daimler Motorengesellschaft, or DMG, in 1890.
Okay, so we have the integrated blueprint from Benz and the versatile engine from Daimler. But the sources are clear that by 1888, Karl Benz was really discouraged. Sales were terrible. People thought the car was a fragile toy.
And that is when the story shifts entirely to Bertha Benz. Karl was the engineer, but Bertha. She was the strategist, the test driver, and really the first auto marketer.
So in August 1888, she decides to prove the car is practical. And she does it secretly.
She takes the improved Model 3, wakes up her two sons, Eugen and Richard, and just leaves.
And this wasn't a short drive. She went 180 kilometers round trip from Mannheim to her hometown of Pforzheim. This was essentially the world's first long-distance road test.
And it was just a brutal, non-stop series of problems that she had to solve on the fly. First thing, fuel.
Right. There are no gas stations.
There are no gas stations. So she stops at a city pharmacy in a town called Weislach and buys Ligroin there. And just like that, an apothecary becomes the world's first petrol station.
But the real genius is in her mechanical fixes. This is where the sources just shine. Tell us about the household objects she used.
Okay, so first, the fuel line kept getting clogged. She didn't panic. She just took out her long, thin hat pin and used it to clear the tubing.
A hat pin. Unbelievable.
Then, the ignition wiring wasn't perfectly insulated, and a bare wire started causing a short. So she took off her garter and used it as an insulator.
Wait, a hat pin to fix the fuel line and a garter for the electrical system? That's just incredible resourcefulness.
It is the definition of field engineering, but her most important fix was the brakes. The car had these simple wooden shoe brakes that wore down almost immediately.
So what did she do?
She stopped in a town and convinced a local cobbler to nail strips of leather onto the wooden blocks.
She invented brake lining.
She invented brake linings on the side of the road. That one act shows she wasn't just driving, she was completing the research and development that Karl had missed.
She was turning it from a prototype into a product.
It also highlighted the car's weaknesses. The sources say on steep hills, the Model 3's 2 horsepower just wasn't enough. Her sons had to get out and push.
But she made it. She sent a telegram to Karl and then drove all the way back.
And the public reaction was instant. Newspapers picked up the story. It was undeniable proof that this thing could handle real roads. That was the commercial spark Benz needed, and it set Benz & C on the path to becoming the world's largest car maker.
And it's fitting, then, that while she made history in 1888, Bertha Benz wasn't inducted into the Automotive Hall of Fame until 2016.
42 years after her husband.
So while Benz is finally taking off in Germany, the U.S. market is still waiting for its own spark. America's first gasoline car comes a bit later, 1893, from the Duryea brothers.
Right, the motor wagon. And their first attempt was literally a $70 horse buggy with a 4-horsepower engine attached to it.
But the real event that ignited the U.S. industry was a race, wasn't it? The Chicago Times-Herald race in 1895.
Yes, on Thanksgiving Day. And the sources describe these just brutal conditions. A 54-mile course covered in snow and mud. It was designed to test the car's utility in rough American weather.
And the Duryea motor wagon won?
It did. It beat 3 imported Benz cars, finished the course in almost 8 hours, averaging just 7.5 miles per hour. But that victory made national headlines. It proved the gasoline car could work, and it started the manufacturing rush.
But manufacturing in the U.S. immediately hit a massive legal roadblock. And this brings us to George B. Selden and his infamous patent.
This is such a crucial piece of American industrial history. Selden was a lawyer, and he filed a patent way back in 1879. It was finally granted in 1895.
And it didn't cover a specific car design, did it?
No, it was much broader. It covered the very concept of an internal combustion engine used in a 4-wheeled vehicle.
So he essentially patented the idea of the automobile in America.
Pretty much, yeah. He licensed it to the Association of Licensed Automobile Manufacturers, LMM, and they collected a fee tax really on every single car legally built in the U.S.
It created a total chokehold on the industry.
A massive one. If you wanted to build cars, you had to pay the fee. It stifled competition, it kept prices high, and it took an industrialist with very deep pockets and a lot of stubbornness to challenge it.
And that would be Henry Ford.
Ford refused to pay. He fought the Selden patent in court for years, and he eventually won on appeal. He argued that the patent did more to hinder auto development than help it.
And Ford's genius wasn't in the initial invention, like Benz. It was in what came next. Revolutionary scaling.
We all hear about the Model T and the assembly line, but the source material really drives home the sheer impact of that innovation.
Give us the context. What did Ford actually achieve starting in 1913?
Before the moving assembly line, building one car took about 12 and a half hours of skilled labor. By perfecting the process, Ford got that time down to just 93 minutes.
93 minutes, from nearly 2 full workdays down to an hour and a half.
And that incredible efficiency let him do the impossible. He cut the price of the Model T by almost 50%. He made it truly affordable for the average American worker. Benz created a car, but Ford delivered on the promise of mass mobility.
And that's the industrial titan we all know. But as we move into the final part of our dive, we have to address the very difficult side of Henry Ford's legacy, which the source material lays out in stark detail.
And this duality is absolutely essential to understanding the history. For all his manufacturing genius, the documentation confirms Henry Ford was a virulent anti-Semite.
And he didn't keep these views private.
No. He used his vast influence and his dealership network to publish and distribute an anti-Jewish newspaper, the Dearborn Independent. It included the notorious series called The International Jew.
And the prejudice was specific and widely reported.
Yes, the reports from the Times show he publicly blamed Jewish people for everything from prohibition and bootlegging to jazz music and even the degradation of American baseball.
And his influence went far beyond the United States.
The connection to European fascism is startling. In 1931, Adolf Hitler actually told a Detroit news reporter that he regarded Henry Ford as his inspiration. A large portrait of Ford famously hung over Hitler's desk in Munich.
He's also the only American mentioned by name in Mein Kampf.
He is, and the association was eventually formalized. On Ford's 75th birthday in 1938, he was awarded the Grand Cross of the German Eagle by Nazi officials. It was an honor Hitler had created, and Ford was the first American to receive it.
Now, Ford Motor Company became a critical part of the U.S. war effort later, building B-24 bombers at the incredible rate, one every hour. But there's a disturbing note about his German operations during the war.
That's the tragic complication. The American Ford Company retained majority control of its German subsidiary, Ford Werk, until May of 1942.
So well into the war.
3 years into the war in Europe. And during that time, the factory built a third of the German army's trucks. And worse, it's been confirmed that Ford Werk used slave labor. It is a deeply morally compromised chapter in the story.
What a monumental, complicated history. We started with the precise integrated engineering of Karl Benz.
Then moved to the audacious, absolutely essential marketing and R&D of Bertha Benz.
And concluded with the industrial scale and the ugly political side of Henry Ford.
The entire foundation of modern mobility really rests on this unstable tripod. You have brilliant engineering, you have audacious risk-taking, and you have complex, often morally ugly industrial scaling. Benz made the machine, Bertha made it practical, and Ford made it ubiquitous.
So if we look all the way back to the beginning, Karl Benz designed his car with that horizontal flywheel. He had this profound conscious fear of the gyroscopic effect on the steerability of his new machine. He was solving a technical problem.
He accounted for the physics of the machine, absolutely, but not the physics of society.
Right. So given the profound unintended societal shifts this invention unleashed, from suburban sprawl and oil dependency to the dark political associations we've discussed, what is the real gyroscopic force, the human, moral element that engineers and entrepreneurs so often fail to account for when they unleash powerful new technology on the world? Something to think about on your next drive.